Hello, welcome to another video from EarnPed.com. I am Stevie B. Happy to have you all with me today. Today is the early morning hours of March 16th, 2023, and I wanted to get this video made and pumped out as quickly as possible to bring you guys the news as fast as possible before it gets out there or before the changes get made in game. That way you guys know first. I've got a ton more videos ready to go, but I'm moving this one to the front of the line. So let's take some big sips to get us started. Last night, I found out via BerthaBot on Planet Calypso Forum that there is a massive change coming to the game. It seems like a small change. It seems like a very small thing, but it's huge, and it's something players have been asking for almost a decade now. It's finally happening. We don't have an exact date when. We just know it's very soon. Could be today, could be next week with the regular Tuesday update. We don't know yet, but we know it is going to be happening per BerthaBot. So I will try and do a deep dive into this. I'm shooting from the hip here, but I'm going to try and deep dive this as deep as I possibly can, so bear with me. So if we go to a trade terminal, right now we only have two tabs. We've got buy and sell. We can purchase stuff like ammunition, starter armor, starter weapons, blah blah, and we can also sell things to the trade terminal. So a lot of times we'll go out hunting, and like I've been hunting fowl, they drop eye oil. Well, I don't want to save up thousands and thousands of eye oil to try and sell on auction for 0.5%. So I just TT it, put PED back on my PED card. Well, we're about to get a new tab, and that is going to be the recycle tab, which will be over here. You will not be able to recycle things purchased from the trade terminal. So I can't get ammunition from the trade terminal and then recycle it. The recycle tab will work similar to the sales tab. It will allow you to convert things you do not want into something you do want, but instead of turning it into PED, it's going to turn it into nanocubes. Why? Because right now you can buy nanocubes from the trade terminal for no markup. You just come to miscellaneous, nanocube. You can buy all the nanocubes you want. I can buy 10,000 if I want. 20, or I guess 10,000 is the max. But I could buy 10,000 over and over. And this has been a point of contention for years because people that use explosive projectiles blueprints, they're just coming to the trade terminal, they're getting nanocubes and they're crafting away. Well, guess what? No more. You're not going to be able to buy nanocubes from the trade terminal. No. That is going away. All you're going to have under miscellaneous is going to be loot collection pills. Nanocubes are going to be a thing of the past. They will no longer be in the trade terminal. The only way you will be able to get nanocubes is to come to the trade terminal, hit the recycle button, put things in the recycle button, and then turn them into nanocubes that way. You know what that means? That means nanocubes will now have markup. That means now that all those explosive projectiles crafters will have to pay more than face value to get their hands on the nanocubes they need. Let's do something I've never done before and I did not think I would ever do. Big round of applause for MindArc. Slow clap. Finally, after 10 years. So this is going to be huge in a lot of ways that a lot of people I don't think have done the deep dive to really think the process out of how all this is going to affect the in-game economy. So let me start by saying don't go to the trade terminal and buy up hundreds and thousands of PED worth of nanocubes to resell later, because it's not like these things are going to go to 500% markup. 0.5%, 1%, 1.5%, somewhere in there. Now, if you want to invest thousands and thousands of PED in nanocubes now to make 0.5% later, fine. I'm just letting you know right now we don't know when later is. Later could be later today. It could be later next week. It could be later 6 months from now. We have no idea. We just know it's later. So, yes, they will have markup. They won't have a ton of markup. That's not the biggest thing. That is a big thing. It's not the biggest thing. What that means is now when we go out hunting and we get all of our loot, we don't just have to run to the trade terminal and TT a bunch of it. We keep the stuff that's worth the good markup. So, give you an example. I was hunting some fowl the other day, as you guys know, and I got this baby right here, a Restoration Chip 1. 4.22 ped. Full TT would be 4.5 ped. So I got it at 94% filled. Market value, 700%, 650, somewhere in there. That's pretty freakishly good markup. So obviously that is loot I will be selling on auction. Well, what about animal eye oil? Well, let's take a look at auction. Currently, somebody has saved up a stack of 2,573.55 ped that they've put on auction, and they're only asking 1/3% in markup. 1/3%. So the reason they had to save a stack that big was with markup that small, they're going to make a whopping 9.5 ped. And after auction fees, they're going to make 9 ped. So what do you do if you go out and you do a hunt and you only come back with 5 ped TT worth? Well, it's not worth the auction fees to throw that on auction. So what do you normally do? You normally throw it in the trade terminal and just get ped back. No markup whatsoever. Well, now, what if you could mix that with other stuff? So I'll give you an example. I'll just go into my storage here because I've got all kinds of examples in storage. In fact, I've got one example that is going to lead into another example. That's why when I say deep dive, I mean deep dive. Okay, I've got all of these Mind Force chips. So I've got some Restoration Chip 3s. These have great markup. So I will not be selling these anywhere but on auction. Love the Restoration chips. Great markup on those. But let's look at some of these low-level chips. So these are... This is an Arsenic Chip 2. So TT value on it, 34 ped. It's full TT. Markup is 10%, give or take. So 3.4 ped. So right now we're only going to pay attention to the markup. Forget demand. We'll get to demand in a minute. So if I was to put this on auction, it's 34 ped TT. 10% markup would only be about 3.5 ped. Well, it's a 50 pec auction fee, right? So what? I'm going to take the risk of maybe it doesn't even sell. If it does sell, cool, I've made a whopping 3 ped. If it doesn't sell, I've lost 50 pec, and now I've got to TT it anyway, right? Let's go with this. Lacerating Attack Nano Chip 1. Markup, about 30%. Okay, problem is it's only got a 5.5 ped TT value. So 10% would be 50 pec. So 1.5 ped in markup. But again, I'm losing half of that to the auction. I'm losing 50 pec just to the auction, right? So if I put it on auction and I spend 50 pec to do it, if it sells, I make 1 ped. If it does not sell, I lose half a ped and I've got to TT it anyway. You see where I'm going with this? There's stuff in-game that has no point whatsoever. I looted a human skull for like 15 ped, 10 ped, something like that, in Cyclops Depths. The item description literally says, this is a human skull. It has no point. It's just decorative. It's just something that's in the loot pool. No markup whatsoever. No use whatsoever. Well, now, whenever I go out hunting, and I come back, all that stuff that the stack is too small to put on auction, or all that stuff that has no markup whatsoever, or not enough markup to justify putting it on auction, or not enough demand. How about stuff that has demand but very little to no markup? Or it has markup but very little to no demand. Okay, Kinetic Attack Nano Chip 7. Pretty decent item, especially if you're a Mind Force user, right? Okay, 20% markup, but full TT on this item is 64.5 ped. There's only been 34.82 ped sell this year. There's virtually no demand for this Attack Nano Chip. None. The only one that sold on auction for the past year sold for 23% markup. Okay, great. But guess what? It was only about half of TT. It was only about 50% of full TT. So, in fact, I think that's the one I bought. I think that's this one. I think I bought it about a year ago, and it wasn't full TT when I got it. I think it was only about half. So I think that is this chip, actually. So, I mean, we have plenty of stuff like that in game that the markup might be great. The percentages might look good over here, and even when you're looking at the TT value, you're going, okay, wow, that's good. I can put that on auction. I'll risk 50 peg to throw that on auction. But in reality, if you look at the demand, there's zero demand for a lot of stuff in game. This is similar to the problem we had on Next Island before the development team got involved and started making a use for all those crystals. Is there was just a ton of crystals in the loot pool. That's all the loot pool was. There was no value. Well, now guess what? Now we don't have to deal with that. In fact, MindArc knows where I'm going with this. And the picture they put on PCF, they showed a low-level limited gun that probably has 10% markup, but probably has full TT value of 10 ped. So putting it on auction, if it sold, you make a half a ped. If it doesn't sell, you lose a half a ped. You TT it anyway. They threw in a low-level nano attack chip that had maybe 5 ped TT value and 20% markup. They threw in a whole bunch of small stacks of oil, so they know what we're going to use this for. All that stuff that either has no demand at all, or it has a little bit of demand and a little bit of markup, but it really not enough to justify putting it on auction. That's what we're going to use this recycle tab for. We're going to dump all of that kind of stuff into the recycle tab, and bam, it's going to spit out nanocubes. The nanocubes will have very small demand, or very small markup, but they will have massive, massive, massive demand. And because of that, we'll then be able to take all of those nanocubes and we'll be able to sell them on auction, probably to orders. We're probably going to see orders for nanocubes very similar to how we see orders for metal residue now. So the reason they're going to have so much demand, if we go to blueprints, highest first, everybody's familiar with explosive projectiles for blueprint. 2,000 nanocubes per attempt. This is where you see the all-time high set. This is what people gamble on whenever they're gambling on explosive projectiles. They get one of these bad boys, 2,000 nanocubes a spin, and they set that sucker all the way to condition. And maybe they hit an all-time high. Maybe they lose their pants. They probably lose their pants. So when we think about nanocube crafting, that's what we think about. However, that's not the only thing nanocubes are used for. Let's say I want to make some Armatrix LR50s. Let's go down through the list here. Durable hood, processor, clips, beryllium, cube. Oh, look. 512 nanocubes per attempt. Well, what if I want to make some LR95s? 958 nanocubes per attempt. Well, maybe I don't want laser rifle. Maybe I want a BC75, a BOP rifle. 744 nanocubes per attempt. We think of explosive projectiles when we think of nanocubes, but really they're used to craft every single Armatrix weapon there is, as far as I'm aware. In fact, I'm pretty sure that even it is true for the blades, like long blades and short blades. Yep, 540 nanocube. So I think it's safe to say practically every Armatrix weapon that is crafted using nanocubes as one of the inputs. The difference is with explosive projectiles, it's the only input, which is why it's always been a point of disdain, because at least with crafting other stuff that requires nanocubes, nanocubes are only one of the inputs. With explosive projectiles, they're the only input. Now, what else? P20 extender blueprint. 2,000 nanocubes per attempt. Plus, you have to have all this other stuff. P20 blueprints are essentially like EP4 blueprints, but in addition to the 2,000 nanocubes, you need all this stuff too. So, this is great because as a hunter, all that stuff that I would normally throw into the trade terminal, I can save it all up over multiple hunts. I can put it in a big, giant lot. I can throw it into that recycle tab. I can get a whole bunch of nanocubes out, and then I can put those nanocubes for sale on auction. And there will probably be auction orders. I can almost guarantee you there will be auction orders, just like there is for metal res. And I'll be able to sell them right away to the orders. Now, it might only be 0.5%. It might only be 1%. But it's going to be something above TT value. That's the important part. How far above, we don't know. But they will have hellacious demand. And because they have hellacious demand, they will have some amount of markup. Now, I said we're going to deep dive this. Let's go a step further. And this is the part I think a lot of people haven't gotten to yet. Let's go back to this arsenic chip. 34 PED full TT value. We can see that 228 PED worth is sold this week alone, 844 PED worth this month, 11.4 thousand PED worth this year. So this chip actually has pretty good demand, just pretty crappy markup. Versus, we're going to pin that, versus this chip over here has no demand and crappy markup. So they've both got crappy markup. The difference is this one has no demand. This one has some demand. So now guess what's going to happen? Remember, we didn't want to put the arsenic chip 2s on auction because if we do sell them, they're only selling for 107 to 110%. So that's going to be about 3 to 3.5 PED. So depending on how we price it, if it sells, we're only going to make 2.5 to 3 PED. If it doesn't sell, we're losing a half a PED and we got to TT it anyway, right? Well, guess what's going to happen? More people are going to turn these into nanocubes. More people are going to say, I would rather not waste that half a PED on the auction fee and take a chance on it not selling. Why bother when I can just turn it into nanocubes? Yes, theoretically, it's got higher markup because those nanocubes, I guarantee you, like I said, the markup's only going to be 0.5%, 1%, maybe 1.5%, versus 7 to 9. However, that's theoretical. We're talking about realized value. We don't realize this value until it actually sells. So even though 228 PED sold this week, how many PED worth were they that somebody listed on auction that didn't sell? Right. And as more and more people experience that, what's going to happen is we're going to see a lot of stuff that normally has pretty decent demand, but those really bad markups that really don't make it worth putting on auction. Example, the perfect example, lacerating attack Nano chip 1, pretty okay-ish demand, 1.3 thousand PED sold this year, 150 PED sold this month, 20 PED this week alone. They're only 5.5 PED full TT, 30% markup. That's 1.5 PED. We're going to see a lot of people go, you know what, I'm not willing to risk the half a PED auction fee on that. And then if it doesn't sell, I'm just out of half a PED, I got to TT it anyway to maybe make 1 PED. We're going to see more people take these and turn these into nanocubes that they can sell for a smaller guaranteed profit. And what's going to end up happening? That means that fewer people are going to be willing to put these on auction. Now, go back to economics with me. A smaller supply, fewer people willing to provide them on auction. What happens if the demand stays the same? Right. Same demand, less supply, prices increase. So, because there's some people that would normally put these on auction that say, it really doesn't make sense to put it on auction and risk losing that half a PED on the off chance that maybe I sell it and make 1 PED. There's going to be some amount of people that are going to now go with this new option and say, I'm going to add this to the big batch of other stuff I'm converting to nanocubes, because now that I've got this batch of nanocubes, I can sell those for a guaranteed profit, much smaller profit, but a guaranteed profit. So that's going to mean we have fewer people providing them. We have a smaller supply of them going on to auction, going on to the open market. However, demand stays the same. We don't even have to increase demand. We're essentially restricting the supply. This means prices go up. So what do we see? We can expect to see that across the board, people are going to choose to do this. They're going to choose to lock in that smaller guaranteed markup, that smaller guaranteed profit, than to risk the auction fees for the off chance on maybe a little bit bigger profit. That restricts supplies across the board, not just for nanochips, for a whole bunch of armor. I got some limited bore armor the other day hunting fowl. Zero demand, 4% markup, 67 PED TT. It was full value when it dropped. Why would I bother listing that at 67 PED with only 4% markup when it has had no demand all year? I think maybe one set sold all year. Why would I waste the auction fee? I wouldn't. I would simply put that into this new recycle tab, spit out nanocubes, add it to the stack I'm going to sell it on auction, sell it to the auction orders. I'm locking in a smaller profit, but it's a smaller, quickly realized, assured profit versus a larger, possibly non-realized profit that actually turns into a loss due to auction fees. So that is going to mean that fewer goods are provided on auction. The demand for those goods stays the same, possibly even increases because now those goods are scarcer. We're going to see markups go up across the board. Everybody's talking about what it's going to do to animal oil residue prices. Who gives a crap? It's animal oil residue. What's it going to do to low-level Mind Force chips? What's it going to do to a lot of the limited armors that drop in game that really have no demand? What's it going to do to the overall economy? When you deep dive this and you look past the small stacks of animal oils or animal oil residue or stuff that already has huge demand and very, very little markup to begin with, and you start looking at the stuff in game that we have that you go, that's actually got some amount of demand. It's got some amount of markup. The markup just isn't really enough to justify putting it on auction. And you realize all that stuff, a lot of people are going to turn into nanocubes to just make their stack of nanocubes even bigger. You start realizing that's going to artificially constrain the supply. So if the demand stays the same and those supplies start getting constrained, the markup on those is going to go up, and possibly the demand also. Because as those markups start to increase, it could very well increase people's desire to have those items. So this could have pretty drastic consequences for markups across the board. It's great for hunters. I personally don't think it's a bad thing for crafters either. I don't think it's a bad thing to say if you're going to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on explosive projectile crafting, then we expect you to be able to pay some small amount of markup to the people in the game that are actually doing other things other than that. If I want to do mining and I go out and do a lot of mining, do you expect to get all my mining ores and end matters for TT value? No. If you're constructing Armatrix weapons, yeah, you've got to have nanocubes in there, but do you expect any of these other inputs for TT value? No. Only whenever it comes to explosive projectiles crafting do we really expect that. And it's been a broken mechanic in the game for a long time because it just doesn't function the way everything else should function. So I'm very, very excited about it. This is an official announcement via Berthabot, via the forum. I don't know when it's going to happen. Like I said, I'm not running out to convert every single thing that I have into nanocubes expecting this to go 500, 600%. It's not going to. In fact, it's going to be the opposite. It's going to be like metal residue. There's going to be a ton of it that sells every single day. Massive demand, massive sales, very, very low markup. However, it's the way it's going to change everything else that is going to have a massive, massive impact. So I expect this is going to do big things across the board. I'm very excited. I'm definitely looking forward to it. Cannot wait to see all the ways that it changes the game. It's something that we've needed for a very long time, and I'm glad MindArc is finally doing it. I'm glad they're doing it now before we get Unreal 5. The timing is great. Gotta love it. So I want to get this video out to you guys because I don't know if this is happening today. I don't know if it's happening tomorrow. I don't know if it's happening next week or 6 months from now. But it is happening. So I'm going to leave it there for today. Sip, sip, smack, smack. Y'all know the rest. Head over to earnped.com because when you earn, we earn. Best way you guys can help us out. Just log into earnped.com. Use the links to go to hideout.tv. Hideout will add earnped.com as a redemption option for your points. Also, be sure and hit that bell icon so you guys know when we post new content. Also, hit the like button on the videos and the subscribe button because doing those three things tells YouTube to put our videos in front of other people. It finds people who play PC games, MMOs, RCE, real cash economy games. It puts our videos in front of them. A lot of times it's the first time they've ever heard of Entropia Universe. They watch the videos, they watch the channel, then the next thing you know, they download the game, they start playing. They might end up being a society mate of yours. They might end up buying something from you off auction. That person might decide they want to spend money crafting Armatrix weapons or doing explosive projectiles, and they may end up putting in a buy order for your nanocubes. So it helps us, it helps the channel, it helps the game, but it could very potentially also help you guys out too. So do it. We'll be back with you for more content we'll be back with more content for you later this week and next week. So stay tuned. We've got a lot more coming. Until then, take care, Stevies.